Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 6 of And Action. I'm Tommy DiNucci here with Mike Messier, and today we are going to be talking about one of my favorite actors, and really the first actor that I had a chance to direct in my career, and that is none other than the man, the myth, the legend, Eric Roberts. Mike, how are you? What's going on?
Well, I'm good, Tommy. I'm here in Orlando, special location this week, and Eric Roberts is a guy that you've worked with for a long time, and I get the pleasure of working with him once last year for Mr. Birthday, and what a nice topic to have for this show.
I'm very excited to talk about Eric. It's funny, I literally just got off the set of Brian Greenberg's Junction, which we've been filming in Providence, Rhode Island, and really all around all of Rhode Island the last few weeks. And it's been a lot of flip flopping schedules. We've been doing, days 1 minute, and then the next day we flip into an overnight. So last night we wrapped around like four something in the morning, probably 4:30 in the morning,
Wow.
somewhere in that neighborhood. And I decided to not sleep. I actually kind of just like
Oh, geez.
did a little bit of kind of wrote some, get caught up on some emails. I got a little workout in. I
Wow.
played some PlayStation for a little while.
Huh.
I just kind of like I get so jazzed up after wrapping a movie that like I have this like natural energy that obviously is going to eventually hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm going to pass out.
Sure.
But right now, doing all right. I'm getting my coffee in,
Yeah.
and we're ready to rock and roll. We got a few of our usual listeners, watchers here. We've got Stephen E. We've got Johnny. We've got Ari. What's up, guys? Thank you for joining us. We're gonna have a fun show today. I'm really excited to talk about Eric Roberts. Um, Mike, I think at first, like, let's just establish. I think a lot of the younger viewers might not realize what a big contribution to really cinema history Eric Roberts has kind of given over the years. Um, you know, definitely a guy who has made his mark on the industry.
Yeah. Well, you can go to YouTube and watch a bunch of videos about Eric Roberts' career. The Runaway Train, I believe, was nominated for an Oscar. He was in a great movie, The Pope of Greenwich Village, I believe it's called, with Mickey Rourke, I believe. In fact, I used to have a poster on my wall for years when I lived in Silver Lake in Providence of Eric and Mickey Rourke on this oversized poster I got from a video store back when they had those buddies. So, um,
That's cool.
yeah,
Well, let's talk a little history. Let's talk a
sure.
little history about Eric Roberts. So Eric was born in Biloxi, Mississippi, in 1956, April 9th to be exact. So it was his birthday not too long ago.
Oh,
And believe it or not, when I was doing my
sure.
research, I found this interesting. He's actually the son of a couple of actors and playwrights. His parents, Betty Lou and Walter. He got into acting when he was in his 20s, and kind of like some of these. It's funny. Some actors it takes a long time to get to their point. Like you get your Morgan Freemans of the world, who I don't think Morgan Freeman had like a really like notable role until his 40s.
Right.
And then you've got your Eric Roberts of the world, who kind of just grabbed the business by the horns and in their 20s quickly become a star. And that was Eric Roberts. You mentioned Pope of Greenwich Village, but before he did that, he was in a Bob Fosse movie called Star 80, which
Yes.
actually got him a lot of kind of critical acclaim. And then from there, the big one that kind of, I guess you could say, set him up, so to speak, was a movie called Runaway Train, where he was nominated for an Academy Award. So check out Runaway Train if you haven't seen it and you really want to see Eric do his thing. I hate to use the word in his prime because I think Eric's still a talented actor, but that's the Eric Roberts that kind of made him, I guess you could say, famous. And then Mike mentioned the Pope of Greenwich Village. If you There's one of those movies where like you might not have seen the movie, but you
Right.
probably know the line. They took my thumbs, Charlie. Like
Yeah.
that, it's so funny. That's literally there's a lot of movies like that, and I can't think of any other examples right now, unfortunately. But movies that like as a kid, you like know a line from the movie, and you don't even know what the movie is
I
until
could have been
later.
I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody from On
That's
the
a perfect
Waterfront.
example. Yeah, like
Yeah.
I heard that line a million times. Could have never placed it with On the Waterfront. So
Right.
I think they took my thumbs, Charlie, is kind of one of those lines, very famous quotable line that Eric said in the Pope of Greenwich Village, like Mike said, opposite Mickey Rourke. And then there was kind of a bit of a guilty pleasure of mine, and actually a movie that set Eric up as what they call in the wrestling business a body guy. But really what that means is just a physically fit guy, an ass kicker, somebody who could handle themselves in an action movie role in a leading part. And that of course is the best of the best, which is just a
Yeah.
classic, iconic late 80s action kickboxing kind of movie, martial arts movie. Uh, Lots of great fighting sequences. Eric obviously actually trained outside of the movie world, quite a bit of martial arts, and wasn't terrific shape. Still is in terrific shape, but shows the physique off in this one. And it's funny how a role like that can kind of like again put you down a whole nother path for all different types of again like action movies. And Eric did a ton of martial arts films and things like that. So um, by the time the 90s came along, Eric was very much established as a leading man in the business right up until one of my favorites. Mike, do you remember The Specialist with Sylvester Stallone?
Oh yeah, that was like mid to late 90s, 95, 96, 97, something like
It
that.
was a night. I think it was. I have it on my notes here. I think it was 95.
Yep.
And again, I just remember that I'm a big Sylvester Stallone fan.
Yes, it was great.
I kind of watched every Stallone movie there was, especially as a kid. Um, And, I just remember Eric being a great villain to play opposite Stallone's, hero, so to speak. Like we always say this, you hear this a million times, and I'll probably say it a million times, but like every great hero needs a great villain,
Yes.
and it's not easy to play opposite a guy like Stallone because he's such a big star. And Eric definitely, like as they say, held his own in that movie, and uh, the guy's just flat out cool. He really is. Sometimes cool just translates so well on screen. A
Right.
person has an essence, a personality. I think the great stars, in my experience, and I wish I could describe it a little better, but they're just so good at harnessing their natural cool and presenting it on camera. And I think that's
Yeah.
the one thing that, like, a lot of people, they think acting's easy, and they might be a funny guy, and I've met so many funny guys, some of the funniest people I ever met, and you be drinking a beer with them or whatever, and they'll make you split your sides laughing, and they got such great timing, and they're flowing, and they're calm and comfortable, and they're in charge of the conversation, and then you put them in front of the camera, and
They
suddenly
freeze.
all that
Yeah.
disappears, and
Yeah.
it's as if like another human kind of like abducted them and got inside their body, and you're like, what happened to my funny friend who was like cracking jokes and making everyone laugh? He's literally like putting a weird voice on. What's that weird voice? So, needless to say, as I get off of that whole path, uh, Eric is able to harness his natural cool and completely embody it on camera and do his thing. Um, so we love that. And then finally, like, again, the guy's career just has like gone on so long, and I mean that in a positive way. Like, man, the film industry is not easy, especially obviously as an actor, to stay relevant for like
Right.
30 fucking years. Do you
Yeah.
know how difficult that is to do? That's
Yeah.
like next to impossible in this day and age when people are just constantly trying to like pull you down in every direction. And Eric's filmography continues with movies like The Dark Knight, guys.
Yeah.
One of the highest grossing films of all time. Uh, Eric plays a really cool gangster role in that movie, and I remember that being like super memorable. I think his name's Falcone, uh, and he's just like this mob boss.
He
And I
survives too.
believe
He actually lives.
Mike, that's
Yeah.
right. He's like one of the only guys who actually makes it out of the movie alive. Granted, he
Yeah.
busts
He
his leg
survives
pretty
the
bad. I
wrath.
think it
Yeah.
doesn't Batman throw him off a roof or something out of a window.
He does, but he lives, which, like you said, it's a rarity for a Batman villain to survive the wrath of a vengeful Batman. And that movie we talk about a lot for Heath Ledger, of course, but once again, as you said, Eric Roberts and some pretty strong company did more than hold his own in that one. And you're right. I mean, and actually, you said 30 years. It's more like 40 at this point, because if you think that his career goes back to the late 70s, early 80s, when he got really prominent. I mean, just time flies, with everything. But and of course, he's part of, but he's actually, in my opinion, the guy that put the Roberts daughter, his sister. But as far as I know, Tommy, given that his parents were in the entertainment world, but they weren't as famous as he was, so he's the one that kind of put
Yeah,
that
there's no
lineage of the
question.
Roberts family tree on the map.
Yeah, Eric's definitely the trailblazer in the Roberts family. We're going to talk all about the famous Roberts family later on in the show, but it is quite the little team there. The
Yeah,
Roberts gang. We'll call them the Roberts gang. It sounds like they're an old Wild West gang, but
right.
yeah, the Roberts gang, man, they're heavy hitters. We'll talk about them later as we get into it. The final movie that I want to highlight in more slightly recent years, even though the movie's probably 10 years old now, is The Expendables, which I remember. The reason why I'm bringing up The Expendables is the timing for Expendables is kind of close to when we made Self Storage, which is
Okay.
where my relationship with Eric kind of starts off. And I remember seeing Expendables because obviously, if you don't know about the Expendables, it's a movie where you've got a, a dozen of the who's who of 80s and 90s action heroes all thrown together in one big movie casserole. And you've got all these famous heroes on one side, and then guess who they're playing opposite? Back to that, to have a good hero, you need a good villain. Eric Roberts is on the other side of this gang fighting the goddamn Expendables. He
Right.
is the supervillain that they're after. So to me, that kind of speaks volumes of, again, just continued uh, relevance.
Yeah, I mean, if you're putting one guy against Stallone and all the other heavy hitters, because what the Expendables was basically like an all-star team of 80s and 90s, rock star action stars, Stallone and in various forms of the Expendables brought in his old buddy Dolph Lundgren. He brought in Arnold, but for the first one, like you said, the villain was Eric Roberts. So for Stallone in particular to give that much credence to Eric Roberts, like your personality weight was what I would call it, can hold up against all of us. That is a big plus in the side of Eric Roberts and how much faith a guy like Sylvester Stallone puts in him.
Absolutely. So we love seeing that one. And again, that was a movie that was going on right around the time, a little bit before, but it was new enough where Eric was still like, kind of in my mind as, oh my God, I just saw this guy in this big blockbuster. That's really crazy. So let's talk a little bit about the movie Self Storage, which
Sure.
is my directorial debut. I bit off way more than I could chew. I decided to write it, star in it, and direct it all at the same time. We'll talk about that later. We are going to do a at length kind of deep dive on self storage in July because I can't believe it, and I'm shocked to say, believe it or not, this
Hmm.
July will mark the 10-year anniversary that we were on the set of Self Storage, my first movie making it. So it's
Wow.
kind of like my 10-year anniversary. It's my 10th birthday making
That's
movies this
cool.
summer. So yeah, we're
Yeah.
gonna get into that in July. That'll be a few weeks from now. Crazy to say, the summer is moving on down the road. So I'm not going to get too into the details of the actual film itself, but I really just want to kind of spend time talking about, how Eric got into the movie and kind of just the one-on-one moments that I got a chance to share with Eric and some other fun stories. So that's kind of what we're going to do today. We're going to get into all that fun, and then we're going to talk about some other projects that we did in more recent years with Eric. So let's get right into it. To paint the picture, Self Storage is a movie that fits the category that, if you've listened to some of our previous episodes, our writing part one episode, which talks a lot about what's the magic that we're looking for in that sweet spot for a low budget horror movie. We want 8 to 10 actors. We want one location. We want one or two quote name actors, and we're just going to rock and roll from there. Self-Storage was a movie that really checked all those boxes. Producer Chad Burdy was looking for the right film that kinda fit that category and fit that model that he was putting together at the time, and that was Self-Storage. So we went into production, and we quickly kinda just started going for it and casting the movie, and it was one of those things where I immediately wasn't sure how this process was gonna work. I had never done it before. I'm a first time filmmaker, and I'm really kinda just like, let Jesus take the wheel and see what happens. Chad is spearheading all of the casting, and had, built some relationships with a couple of agents because keep in mind at the time, Chad had made a few movies, but he was still kind of only in the business a couple years at this point.
Right.
So he had just made was just starting to make some real
Mhm.
inroads and real contacts with certain agencies, and one of those agents happened to be the agent of Eric Roberts. So Eric got a hold of the script, and it was all about him checking it out and
Mhm.
gravitating towards it. But he was really our first choice. It was kind of I don't want to say a super rare situation because I've seen it happen before, but more often than not, this won't happen where he really was our first choice. I mean,
Right.
there was nobody else in mind to play the role of Walter, which spoiler alert, he basically is the seemingly friendly, seemingly nice, happy-go-lucky owner of this self-storage facility that my character works at, but later in the movie, we find out that he's actually quite the homicidal maniac who has been running a body part organ harvesting ring right
Right.
out of this storage facility at night. So it's a really fun movie. I enjoyed making it, and I can't wait to talk about it more. But the idea is Eric got the script and he liked it. He really, really was kind of drawn to this part. And it was this kind of dark, twisted role that wasn't just a bad guy for the sake of being a bad guy. The character was kind of funny. The character got to toy with his victims quite a bit, and ultimately, and I think this is what every villain wants in a movie role. They want to know that their characters, yeah, they're the bad guy, but they're not being a bad guy just for the sake of it. They have a reason. They have a
Right.
purpose. What they're doing is justified. Their evil doing is justified. And I think that, as you watch the movie, again, this isn't about self-storage, but you'll see that Eric's character feels like what he's doing is justified. And I think that that's kind of, as I jog my memory and I think back to kind of what Eric first said about the script, I remember those being some of the elements that he liked. He liked the fact that the guy was funny, although he
Right.
was doing all these sinister things, and he liked the fact that in his mind, what he was doing was sound and just ultimately.
Yeah.
So
Well, like Michael Hayes and Stephen E., one of our great viewers this week, who was actually asking us when the show would be on, and I want to say a quick hi to Ari and Kim and everybody who's watching. And we have some good questions here already. So thanks for everyone for being loyal watchers. But Michael Hayes, the wrestling famous Freebird, a bad guy shouldn't know that he's bad, or a bad guy doesn't know that he's bad. The bad guy, if played effectively, has his own motivations and he's justified in his own mind. And if that's humor or if that's a certain outlook on the world, Eric Roberts is not afraid to go to those dark places that other people may not be willing or able to.
yeah, that's a great. I love that line. The bad guy doesn't know that they're bad.
Right.
They're just living in their world. So I remember my first phone call with Eric. And this is kind of the funny thing about the business, like we signed Eric and he agreed to do the film, but I hadn't even really talked to him yet. I had just heard through some management that he was going to do it. Nothing was set in stone yet. There was interest verbally. Then finally he did sign his paperwork and like he's coming to town. And then I remember how it worked was self-storage was a 3-week shoot. It was 3 5-day weeks, and I remember Eric came in for 5 of those days, but he came in for the middle chunk. I remember the idea was
Mm.
we were gonna get, like, 5 days of working under our belt, me, it was first time directing, so, like, I wanted to get my sea legs under me a little bit and at least, not have said action the first goddamn time with Eric there, like, let me, like, get my rhythm down a little bit.
Yeah,
So I remember the first time I talked to him was actually during production of week 1. So it was, like, maybe the 1st or 2nd day of the movie shoot, and I'm like, yeah, probably I wouldn't say nervous. I don't really ever remember being nervous on self-storage because I didn't have fucking time to be nervous. I was
sure.
doing so much shit. I remember just being, like, excited and, like, over jazzed and just running from, like, task to task because I'm handling, everything from supervising costumes practically, making sure that, I remember picking out every single piece of wardrobe. It's your first movie. You're very extra heavy-handed, or at least you should be if you care. So I was bouncing
Yeah,
around that day, making sure everything was right. We had a bunch of extras. There's really not a lot of extras in self-storage, but there's one scene that takes place at a pizza shop early in the movie to kind of set it up and bring us out of that world just for that moment to start things off. So I remember I got a million things to do, and sure enough, I get a call from Chad, and he's like, "Eric wants to talk to you. He's gonna call you like any minute." And I'm like, "Fuck!" I'm like, "We're like about to shoot." So I'm like, "All right," and I remember saying in my head like, "All right, I guess this is the craziness. This is a little taste of the craziness of like what the
sure.
business is like. You're gonna be running around 80 different fucking places. You're gonna have to talk to your lead when you're, doing 18 other things. And guess what? Like it's your first conversation with the guy. You want to sound, sharp. You want to sound aware of what's going on. You want to be totally focused, totally dialed in. You don't want to have your AD like off to the corner, like while you're on the phone, being like, we got to get back on set. Like we've got to shoot. So I remember like getting lucky. Sometimes you do get lucky when you're like under the gun. It's maybe good karma, whatever you believe in. Maybe it's just fucking coincidence. But it happened to be like a camera move where we had to change a lighting setup and I had like 15, 20 minutes. Sure enough, Eric calls. And I remember just getting on the phone with him and his wife Eliza connected us. Um, and she's awesome.
Yeah,
She's really like acts as basically his manager and he'll be the first to admit is like the reason why he's able to like function and get through life. His wife is a wonderful person and
yeah. She
just
was a
does a lot.
casting she was a casting director for years too. I don't know if she still does that, but
she she's she's done acting before.
she's
She's
a
been
highly
heavily
respected
involved in the
casting director.
business. Yeah, absolutely. So she's a great person. She gets Eric on task and keeps his schedule because it's a very busy schedule. So I remember she connected us, and I got on the phone with Eric, and you can like hear him flipping through the pages. Like I can hear the pages of the script, like as he's flipping through, like looking for his part, and he's like, "Yeah, yeah, this guy's very funny, man. He's really funny." He's like, "This is cool, man. This is gonna be cool." And I remember just saying, like, "Wow," like thinking this isn't the difficult business conversation that I thought it was going to be. Like
Right,
Eric's a pretty goddamn chill guy. He's not looking to have this. I was afraid I was going to have this really deep, intense conversation. I was afraid I was going to have to hear some kind of crazy request. I don't know. I never talked to an actor
right.
before. I had no idea what the fuck I was going to get into. And sure enough, it was just like a cool, quick little touch base, little hey, I just, hey man, this is a really cool script. Yeah, I'm looking forward to coming to Rhode Island. I haven't been there in a long time. And yeah, just kind of wanted to say hi. Which I thought was kind of cool, that he wanted to take a minute just to get on the phone with me and at least have the first time we say hello not be the first time we meet,
Right.
like I said, chatted maybe 5 minutes about the script and the character. We talked a little bit about what he wanted to wear. He wanted to wear some combat boots because the character was a former military guy. And although he didn't want to have a lot of nods to that, he
Right.
felt as though the combat boots would be just one little wink that, he's still got that side of him somewhere.
He's still
Um,
there. He's in his mind. He's still partially in that combat.
yeah, and it's cool to see again. It's cool to see your star, your lead, whatever you want to say, not just showing up to quote do a job or to cash a check. They're showing up
Right.
to be actively involved in making this piece as great as it can be.
Yeah, he's not just going through the paces, and he's actually taking a real interest in this project, and that's why Eric Roberts is one of the busiest men in Hollywood, busiest actors, male or female, because he cares enough about every film that people want to work with him again.
Yes, that's a fact. And we're going to get into that a little bit too. I do think Eric currently holds the Guinness Book of World Records for most principal roles in cinema history. Like he has been by principal role I mean you speak in the movie.
Right.
He has had lines in more movies than anybody who's literally ever stepped foot in front of a camera, and that goes back to the literally like the late 1800s. So or maybe early 1900s. We're
Yeah.
gonna get a fact check on that. I don't claim to be
Whenever the
a film
talkies began, I
historian,
guess.
but whenever
Sorry.
they started that shit, we'll tell you on the next episode. We'll give you a little breakdown on that. But getting back into it, so we had this really great, chill conversation, and that was it. And then I did get, production. But when I say I mean production. But really, Self Storage was a unique movie where myself and a small handful of people were really doing everything. It was,
Right.
the first movie kind of deal. Band of rapscallions put together to make this ragtag picture. So basically, what ended up happening was we got a list of demands from Eric. It was kind of funny, and the demands weren't crazy demands. They were just, hey, look, Eric eats very healthy and he's a vegetarian. And you need to have kashi goleen cereal. You need to have whole grain this and whole grain that, and gluten free this, and various vegetables and fruits, and just literally like picture going into a Whole Foods and just like doing the supermarket sweep and just loading up the
Right.
grocery cart. We had his trailer just stuffed to the gills with the healthiest food you could imagine. Because remember, get back to what we said earlier. Eric, since the beginning of his career, is known as a fitness guy, known
Right.
as a kind of a martial arts guy, known to be in shape. So he's got a lot of healthy food that he wants, and we made that happen because you want to keep your talent happy, right?
Right.
So just keep that in mind, and we're gonna veer off for now, but just keep that little detail in mind that we've got a trailer full of probably look, I'm not trying to brag, but we probably spent $400 or $500 on healthy food. Healthy food's not cheap. That's kind of
Yeah, you've got a
that's the
mini.
catch. The catch 22 in life is like they say eat healthy, but it's the most expensive shit to buy
Right.
for the most part. So,
Yeah.
we had Eric all loaded up with his healthy food. He comes to set. He's very happy.
Good.
I remember going into his hotel room with Chad the first night that he arrived for the meet and greet the night before. And we go into his hotel room. We have a little brief conversation about Rhode Island, and like I said, he hadn't been there in a while. And we do basically like a wardrobe fitting, and I'm pretty sure we had our costumer there, and we put everything on. And one thing I learned from Eric that's really interesting is he requested that his clothes were a size bigger than they really usually are.
Okay.
And as an actor, again, like these are just the cool little things that you can pick up from actors. A lot of people that are in, great shape, they wear lots of like skin tight clothing, and you think like tighter is better. But Eric was actually like, no, man, on camera, he's like, trust me. He's like, you want it a little bit baggy, a little bit bigger. You want a little room. You don't want things clinging to you. You never know like what light's gonna look weird, and like you turn and your shirt's too tight, and like it's just a weird shape, and you're not in bad shape, but that doesn't look like, it's not
Right.
presenting you the right way. So I thought that was really cool how like, not really for pants because obviously you don't want them falling around your ankles when you're running around, but like things like his shirts, things like a jacket, he wanted that to be like, if he wore a large, he wanted it to be an extra large.
Gotcha.
He wanted it to be like one size bigger so he could kind of like have that little bit of play, a little bit of give in the wardrobe, which I thought was kind of cool. Like these are just like again, I'm 27 years old at the time. It's my first time directing anything like this. I'm just like a sponge, like soaking up anything because in my mind, I'm an actor, I'm a director. Eric's a very successful actor. So the director in me is trying to like keep my shit together and focus on the job.
Right.
But the actor in me can't help but be like, let's take a look at this wily veteran and like see what he's doing. Like, how do you,
Take
it's,
notes.
it's like kind of like the rookie looking at the veteran in the locker room and seeing how they prepare for a game. Like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, you do that kind of. That's how you're stretching out your arm. All right, I should try that. So basically, I just thought that was like a cool little tidbit. And look, we got into it. Eric was really cool. I remember like one of the first scenes was just me and him, and it was kind of like the opening of the movie where we kind of meet our characters. And I remember actually in prep, like choosing to do that one first because I wanted us to almost like, you never really get to tell a story in a linear fashion when you're shooting a movie. But I figured
Right.
like my first movie, my first time establishing these characters, let's just bite off a big ass scene and go right into it and establish who these two guys are right away. And I felt like if I was gonna suck, if I was gonna fall on my face, if I was gonna fuck something up, let me fuck it up right away on day one. Here's a little tip for you. If you fuck something up early enough in the shoot, you just might have time to fix it later. You might just have time to watch that in the editing room and be like, oof, I fucking hate that. And you might have a chance. Like I said, he's going to be there for 5 days. All right, we blew this last part here, but like, let's go back and maybe reshoot this one little bit.
Right.
Fortunately, I didn't have to do that, but that was kind of my mindset. I was like, let's bite off one of the harder scenes first, so that like if I fuck it up, I could maybe shoot it again. A and B, it just built the confidence level. Like Eric and I immediately started bouncing ideas off of each other and working off of each other's finding our chemistry and working each other off of each other's beats that we're given. And Michael Berryman, who's also one of the stars in the film, we've talked about him before on the
Yes.
show. He was in that scene too. So it was a great chance for me to like right off the bat, let's break all the ice. Let's get everybody in the room and do a big ass scene to kind of start this movie off. And that's what we did. And I really think that kind of set the tone.
Smart move. And like you said, if it came out that that scene wasn't shot to your standard, you may have time to film it again on day 4 or 5. So that was a good strategy. And like you said, luckily you didn't have to go there, but it's a smart move that you did rather than waiting till day 5. And maybe it would be rushed if that was the last day those guys would be there. You know what I mean? So keep going. It's good.
Yeah, exactly. So, my confidence, I mean, hell, Eric's confidence was where it was going to be. He's a goddamn movie star, but my confidence grew quite a bit that day, and it built a lot of momentum for us as we move forward into the shoot. Um, and then, look, Eric, like I said, he's naturally cool, and I remember one really cool thing that he did. He had these glasses, right?
Yeah.
And they were red, and I had never seen like almost like rose red colored shades. And
Right.
and Eric's got this really cool voice. And forgive me, Eric, if you ever happen to watch this, I doubt you will, but if you do, he has this really cool voice. He's got the slightest southern drawl from that Biloxi still in him. It's so minute, but it's just there and it's cool. And I
Yeah.
remember he calls everyone boss,
Right.
even though he's clearly in charge.
Yeah.
But
Like Andre the Giant, he's the boss, but he calls everyone else the
but he
boss.
exactly. So he goes, "Hey, boss, I'm thinking about wearing these glasses in the scenes." And I look
Right.
at him. I'm like, and I remember they were octagonal. The rims were like kind of octagonal. They had a little shape, little edge to them. I remember just thinking, I was like, those are fucking badass, Eric. I was like,
Right.
where'd you get that? He's like, oh, I got these in a little antique store a while back. They were like these beautiful vintage antique frames. And I was like, hell yeah. I was like, you should wear those all the time. I want you to remind me about the food story, and I want you to remind me about the sunglasses story because me agreeing to let him wear them in every scene, there was a reason for that. But
Okay.
before we get into that, I just want to talk about like Eric's coolness. He's got this again, this natural coolness that just radiated on screen. And I remember, you know, no offense to any of the other actors that are in the movie, because there's so many talented young actors that, came in and were part of that. But it was definitely like, I remember for the first time being this rookie director looking at my monitor and seeing, oh man, how am I gonna say this without sounding like a total fucking asshole? But like seeing Eric act compared to everybody else that I had seen at that point, it was as if you were like watching like major league. It was like watching like guys throwing 88 miles an hour in like, high level minor
Yeah.
leagues, and then like seeing someone throw 97 miles an hour. And it was just like, whoa, like what the fuck is that? Like my fucking radar
Right.
gun was like flashing. And for the first time, saw like what the craft truly looks like behind the lens, and like how you can be having a bullshit conversation about what kind of ice cream you like one minute, and then this guy can just step foot in front of a camera and turn this shit on and bring
Right.
it, and it's like, whoa. And I loved seeing that. Like I remember that moment, like seeing a true goddamn bona fide star in
Right.
front of my camera at the time was really like a cool feeling, and you saw the difference. You saw like what that magic was. So that was kind of like for a first time director, it was cool to see that coming from Eric. Um, so we talked a little bit about uh, the physicality that Eric has brought to the table in the past, uh, and we're going to talk about that physicality and how it relates to a scene with Michael Berryman, which, almost 10 years now. It's probably past the statute of limitations, and
Uh-oh.
I don't think the guys would mind me breaking the curtain down a little bit and sharing this story, but Michael was just coming off of a rotator cuff surgery, I believe. Some kind
Uh,
of
j
surgery that he had.
just so people know, Michael Berryman, he was the famous face from The Hills Have Eyes, is that right? The guy signature horror film actor. Is this, same gentleman?
Yeah, Michael Berryman, he's been in a ton of genre, like horror movies, but also just, look him up, you'll see. Mike,
Very
why don't we get a
distinctive
quick, let's
face.
get a quick IMDb on Mike, because there's a lot of kind of fun. Like I believe he was in Weird Science.
Oh, yeah.
Lot of cool cameos. He was in, I want to say, a Motley Crue video that got him like a lot of attention at one point. But Michael's an icon in his own right in that space. So as Mike looks this up, basically he's coming off of an injury. Now they didn't tell
Right.
us that, which it is what it is. It's not Michael's fault. It really isn't. But his management probably should have been a little more candid with us in terms of
Mhm.
his physical limitations.
Right.
Because if you read the script, I mean, his character has a shit ton of action and fights and, hand to hand combat. Yet they tell us, of course, once we've signed the deal and he shows up on set, they tell us, oh, yeah, by the way, Michael's coming off of a surgery. He can do a little bit, but he really can't do a whole lot of physical stuff. Now, granted, we had a stunt double. Shout out to Nick Principe, who you've heard about on the show before. Nick's probably one of the few actors to be in almost every movie that I've ever directed. Um, so we had a stunt double, but guess what, guys? There's only so much that you can double, and you know
Right.
Michael's got a very unique look, so it's not the easiest double in the world, and you kind of jeopardize the angles that you can shoot by doubling him. So there were certain shots that I needed to get. There was no fucking around. There couldn't be any doubling. One of those shots in particular was this culminating knife fight between Eric and Michael at the end of the movie. And I remember Michael being very pensive and careful about, okay, be careful for my shoulder, we'll do, and listen, when you shoot a fight scene in a movie, it's not like the two guys just go out there and kind of call it in the ring, as they say. They don't
Right.
just figure it out. Like it's by the numbers. Literally, there are numbers. Like one, overhand left. Two, block with the right hand. Three, come down and swing. So like you got beats to follow.
Yeah.
And then of
Yeah.
course what ends up happening is in rehearsal you go nice and slow and you go through every beat and everything's safe. And then when the camera turns on, sometimes all hell breaks loose, and again, it's all in the interest of making it look real and making it look
Right.
authentic because I think every actor's fear, and we'll say the same about, we talk about wrestling a lot on the show, but it's every wrestler's fear too. You don't want to throw a popcorn punch. You don't want to make your punches look like bullshit or make them look
Right.
weak. Or guess what? What have we been talking about this whole time? What is Eric Roberts known for? His martial arts,
Right.
his ability to fight in movies. He doesn't want to look bad, so of course he's going to bring it. So he's not going to go extra slow. He's not going to, again, I don't think it's him being careless or reckless. It's just he's going to try and hit those beats as hard as he can. And the first take, I remember he kind of went through it pretty quick. And, sometimes things go wrong. Maybe there was a miscue. I'm not blaming anyone, but Michael's arm went back a little too far than he would have preferred it to go back. And I remember he
Yeah.
kind of like screamed a little bit. And I was like,
Uh,
"Oh shit, I never encountered this." And like, there was a little tension there, and the two old war horses are like kind of like rocking back and forth, looking at each other. And then I'm like, "Okay, let's go again, guys. Let's try to go nice and slow." And I'm looking at Nick like, "Nick, like, what the fuck, buddy? Like, can you help
right.
me out here?" And
Uh,
Nick's the stunt coordinator, so he's there working through all those beats that I was talking about. And I remember, okay, take two, let's get it. And Eric, is gonna all right, he's going through it. All right, no, let's go, we'll do it. And boom, same thing happens. And this
mm.
time it looked like it was even worse. And this time Michael screamed even louder. And I remember being like, oh no, like is it
So let me
I
ask.
really
Let me
thought
ask
his shoulder
Tommy.
was
Just
like fucked up.
yeah, I wanted to ask real quick. Was it that was the pain coming from Michael exerting his own arm back too much, or was he literally getting tagged a little bit and that was causing him pain? What was causing Michael Berryman the pain in
I think
this?
to use a wrestling term, I think Eric was being snug with
Right.
what he was doing, but I don't think Eric did anything over the top or stiff, or certainly didn't do anything to intentionally hurt Michael.
Of
It
course.
was entirely an accident. But again, it gets back to the point of, well, yeah, he wants to go easy on the guy, but like at the same time, the movie needs to look right. He can't be,
Yeah.
throwing a punch like this. And, yeah, you can speed shit up, but it never looks right. So really, and again, it's been a long time. And Michael, if you're listening, I don't blame you. But I blame it on Michael's rep or Michael's management to not say early on, like, "Hey, he's got some these are some serious physical limitations, and this scene with the knife fight, you might wanna rewrite that to be a gunfight or something
Right.
that doesn't require a physical tussle." Because
Yeah.
I would have rather done that. Like, I wouldn't have, they were probably afraid that we weren't gonna cast Michael if they said something like that, but the reality is, I would have still cast Michael, I just probably would have rewrote the scene to be less physical and then still kinda like, you know, gnarly and sinister. And so needless to say, this time Michael screams really loud, and it's
Yeah.
kinda like a "What the fuck?" kinda moment.
Mm.
Like, "What the fuck, man? You know I got a bad shoulder."
Right.
And then Eric, he ain't gonna back down. He was like, "Oh, hey, man, I'm just going through the beats. I did everything exactly how we did it in the rehearsal." And there was a little huffing, there was a little puffing. I think Michael took a walk outside because I would not want to fuck with Michael. I mean, the guy he's a big
Sure.
dude. He's, you know, has werewolves tattooed on his arm. Just wouldn't fuck with him.
Yeah.
Uh, Michael kind of storms off, cools off outside. Eric is kind of just like, hey, man, I don't know, man, kind of like shrug emoji.
Right.
Eric is the shrug emoji before I think the shrug emoji existed.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm just doing my job. I don't know what you want me to do. And then thankfully, Michael came in, and I think, listen, Michael's a terrific guy. Has terrific character about him, and I think Michael probably realized that, like, all right, I'm the one with the injury. It's not Michael. It's not Eric's fault. He ain't trying to actually hurt me here. And we got through the scene, and I think, like, I might have changed up my coverage a little bit to where I didn't need quite as much physicality, and whatever it was, finished off, and all's well that ends well. Michael wasn't injured. There was no pull apart between my two lead
Yeah.
actors in the movie. I didn't have to, get any blood on any of the costumes and wash it out later. So it was, as they say, a harmless encounter at the end of the day. But it did get a little
Mm,
tense for a second, and I just remember being like, "Oh shit, these guys are." When you're like watching two people, you're like, "Are they gonna fight?" Like this,
right.
they might. These guys might fight. But all was well, and by the end of the night, they were hugging each other and you know, best
Well,
pals, and it
that
was all good.
that makes our viewer, Colby happy because she was just before you said that, she was hoping that everyone hugged it out at the wrap party, and,
Colby, they most certainly did hug it out that night, before. I mean, listen, I use sports references a lot, probably too much. I should probably like pepper them back. But I think it's like this. I've been involved in theater too. I think, it's funny how you would think sports and
right,
theater have nothing to do with each other. But I played a lot of sports and I've been involved in a lot of acting productions, and they both have really passionate people involved. And when you have passionate people involved, tempers are going to fly and flare up, and people are going to go off the handle and explode. But just as quickly as they explode, in 5, 10 minutes, it's like we're all friends again, and we realize that we're only getting that hot because we all want the same fucking thing. We want whatever we're working on, whatever game we're playing, we want to win. Whatever theater
right.
production, we want it to be the best theater production. Whatever movie, we want it to be great and memorable. So, yeah, there's going to be tensions, and this was a perfect example of you got some tensions flaring. They got it out. Sometimes the Rams got to butt the heads a little bit, and then it's all good. And sometimes getting that aggression out actually can prevent an even bigger blow up down the road.
Let me, throw some Mike and the video you're thinking of was Motley Crue's 1985 "Smoking in the Boys' Room," which is a classic. I think he was like the principal or the janitor or something like that, the authority figure who gave like the smokers in the boys' room a tough time. Of course, Wes Craven's 1977 horror film classic, "The Hills Have Eyes." 8 years later, in '85, "The Hills Have Eyes" Part Two. Weird Science. Here's one huge film, 1975 Academy Award-winning drama, "One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest."
Oh
Uh,
man, that's right. How did we miss that one?
yeah. Here's the other thing that maybe was a factor. Michael looks great, but he at the time he did this movie, he was probably 63 years old. And basically he was born with a very rare condition that's characterized by the absence of sweat glands, hair, and fingernails. So that kind of gives him his, a little bit unique appearance condition that he has. I don't want to speak for him, but I'm sure he's very self-aware of his health, and so you're right. The management maybe could have been a little bit more forthcoming and just giving you the heads up about what was going on with
Yeah,
him coming off of surgery and stuff.
again, I appreciate that insight, Mike, but really, I think it was strictly just he was coming off of this surgery. Even at
Yeah,
63, again, Michael Berryman would probably kick my ass today at
sure,
70, whatever he is, but he's
right,
probably 73 now. He's
yeah,
a tough guy. I don't think it was age. I don't think it was his pre-existing condition. The guy just had a surgery and probably, as they say, got on the playing field a little too soon.
yeah.
And again, they should have told us that. But enough about that. Let's move on. Um, Basically, self storage was a great time, and I did enjoy my time with Eric. But there was a moment where I made what I like to call the first biggest mistake of my directing career. And listen, I don't hold any ill will against Eric for this because at the end of the day, he was trying to do something good. But I listened to Eric, and I shouldn't have listened to him in one very key particular moment. And I'm going to give you the backstory. The end of this movie, Self Storage, originally finished off with Eric's character, Walter, dying. The two leads basically outsmart him, and he gets his comeuppance.
Right,
And trust me, if you watch the movie, he fucking deserves it. All right, he's
yeah,
killing people left and right. So this isn't like he's not a sweet angel by any means. So here we are, literally Eric's last day on set, and he comes up to me, and we're all sitting down together, a few people, producers, whatever, getting the set ready to go. It's just before lunchtime, and we're gonna shoot his death scene that night after lunch. And I had a visual effect plan for it. I had a special effect makeup design plan for it. He was gonna get shot in the face with a flare gun, and his whole basically, like, you'll shoot your eye out, but with a flare gun. His
Yeah.
whole fucking eye was gonna be cooked out of his face. It was a for the budget compared to the budget, it was a fairly expensive effect that was ready to be applied to Eric after lunch. So Eric says to me, "Boss, I'm not dying today." And I said, "What do you mean?" Look, let's talk about this ending." And I'm getting a little nervous. I'm like, "All right, what do you want to talk about?" He's like, boss, I've died in so many movies, and I think that this movie's more valuable if you keep me alive because I think you have something really fucking special." And please forgive me. I don't know if he said the F word, but he's like, "I think you have something really special here. I think they're going to want a sequel to this movie. I think you're going to want me in your sequel. So I don't think I should die today, boss. I really think I should stay alive. I like working with you. I like working with this company. This is a cool movie. It's a cool project. You can make a franchise out of this. You could keep this thing going." And in my mind, I'm like, "Oh man, this really fucks up everything I have planned. I have an
Right.
effect. I have a script. I have a vision that I've had for a long time." But then I said to myself, "Shit, man, he's kind of got a point." And I immediately started cooking up in my mind all these ideas
Mm.
for what self-storage 2 would be, and then what self-storage 3 would be. And I started seeing all the dollar signs in my head of like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have this next great fucking horror franchise, and Eric's gonna lead me to the promised land. Here we go. So I said, "Well, I don't know, Eric. I got this big effect planned, and I was gonna, we spent a lot of money on it." But he's like, "No, trust me, this is better." I was like, "Well, I don't really have a finish plan now. What are we gonna do?" And he said, "Well, boss, you're, kind of like you're the writer, kind of thing." And I said, "Well, listen," and this was me thinking. This was me thinking that I kind of won a little bit, or yeah, at the time I look back in hindsight, I'm like, "You fucking idiot."
Right.
I go, "All right, I'll do it." I'm like having a big rally. I'm like, "All right, I'll do it." But at lunch, you to sit down with me. I'm going to go into your trailer. I'm going to get the script, and we're going to work on this end scene together so that we are in 100% agreement with it, and there will be no tomfoolery when we get on set. There's not going to be any changes. We're not going to, at the last minute, get an idea.
Call an
Let's figure
audible.
it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's just figure it out together at lunch how we're going to finish this movie. So he said, "You got it, boss. Sure." So I go into his trailer, we sit down, and we come up with a finish that leaves Eric's character alive. And look, we shot the scene that night. And was it bad? No, it wasn't a bad finish. Was it better than what I had originally? I don't think so. Did we ever make
Yeah.
Self Storage 2? No. Did we ever make Self Storage 3? Fuck no, we didn't. So ultimately, at the end of the day, it's kind of funny because, like, you know, me on movie one, yeah, whatever you want, lead actor. We can do whatever you want.
Sure.
You want to live in the end of the movie? Fuck yeah, let's do it. But I remember looking at it like even a few movies into my career. Like I remember even like pondering this, kind of like looking back at this during like maybe it was Almost Mercy and being like, man, I would have never fucking agreed to that. Now I would have just been like, nah, we're not doing that. And
Yeah.
that's the thing. I didn't know, Mike. Like, I didn't understand, and this isn't me power tripping, 'cause I'm not,
Right.
but I didn't understand, like, the true role of the director. I didn't understand that the director can say no. He can say, "No, you're here for
Yeah.
5 days. This is my movie. It's gonna live on forever. You signed a contract to say this stuff. I'm not giving you a change up at the last minute. You read the script and knew what the ending was and agreed to do it. You don't have the power to at the end of the last minute change the creative. You can't fucking do that." So again,
Yeah. If I could
we
jump in,
learn things.
jump in a little bit, buddy. I can see where the motivation from Eric, I think, was sincere, thinking about the sequel because this is 2008, 2009 era when things like Hostel were huge. And what was that? There was a series of movies where like people
Saw.
were Saw. That's right. You got it. So
Yeah.
Hostel and Saw. So people were it's probably more so Saw. People were really thinking in terms of really dark, grisly horror films were in fashion and souls were in fashion as they still are now. But really, at that time, Eric was probably thinking franchise. I don't think his motivation was off. I don't think his suggestion was off. I think once again, it was just a thing where you guys were in a time crunch because one way or another, we got to film the end of this movie today. And you had a really galvanized plan in your mind, which is great. And then he doesn't want to do that. And it's like, but his motivation, I think, was good. I think your motivation was good too. It's just that the the time crunch, and I think a lot of folks, if they've never been on a movie set before, they don't realize it's a lot of hurry up and wait. It's a lot of egos. It's a lot of money considerations, and things get changed at the last minute. I mean, I was on the set of the Mario Van Peebles Wesley Snipes movie, and the fight scene got changed at the last minute, and I was in no position as an actor to do anything other than what he told me, and
Yeah,
it's
that's a good point,
but I
Mike.
don't I don't think I think Eric's motivations was strong. Yeah.
I agree with you, Mike. And listen, I'm just kind of rehashing the story and trying to have a little fun with it in retrospect. I don't think he was
Sure.
trying to do anything negative either. I just think that, if anything, it was just a lesson to stay true to the script that you wrote. You wrote it that way for a reason, and don't veer from the path too hard, because again, there's a reason why everybody came together to make that movie. But ultimately, self storage was a lot of fun, and there is kind of a funny moment. And again, I don't want to get in trouble for saying this, but it's goddamn funny. I can't help it.
Go
Uh,
ahead.
well, there was all that food that we had for Eric in his trailer. The hundreds and hundreds of dollars worth of healthy food.
A mini
Uh,
Whole Foods.
There was, and our producer, Chad Verdi, uh, owns a restaurant called Greg's in Rhode Island. And Greg's, if you're a Rhode
Yeah.
Islander, is known to have really great, burgers, really great. It's a family style restaurant. So everything from
Desserts.
burgers to
Yeah.
chicken fingers to desserts to just like, they do it right. It's like one of those family style restaurants that, feels like home cooking. And it's
Yeah.
it's really quite famous in the Rhode Island area,
Yes.
for just having known for having great food, great pastries. So we've got this whole spread of everything from chicken fingers to French fries to cakes to cupcakes. And I'm hanging out with Chad one day, and we're kind of just waiting for, I think it was lunch. And I think it was one of those situations where sometimes, an actor will have an early exit. Like I think that night, Eric worked worked like a half a day and was done for the day by lunch. And I remember he was collecting his lunch, and he was going to get in the car and go to the hotel. And Chad and I look over and we see him like just putting together a plate of chicken fingers and had I think a burger and had a cake, and we were told he was a vegetarian.
Yeah.
And we're like, what the fuck is going on here? And he just kind of like looks over at us and he's like, boss, this looks real good. I'm excited to take this back to the room. And me and Chad are just like looking back and we're like, the fuck is going on here? What's with all the Kashigoline and everything else? And hey, listen, I've toyed with going up and down and training and all that stuff. There's nothing like having a splurge, and I got nothing
Sure.
against it. And I ain't knocking Eric for taking a piece of cake and some chicken fingers back to the room. In fact, that sounds like a perfect night to me.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is it was funny that we loaded up an entire trailer full of vegan or vegetarian food, and then there he is taking home chicken fingers for the little time for the ride home. You never know what you're going to get with performers. One of the more unpredictable things is I'm going to kind of get into. It's not really so much of a secret anymore, but Eric Roberts uses cue cards sometimes in his scenes, uh, and it's one of those things where you know a lot of people I've heard like actually like have an issue with this.
Right.
And my thing is, like I say, this guy cares enough about the production to not waste a bunch of time and wants to have his shit on point and focused. It's never a problem. It's never an issue. It's never in the way. I'm all for the cue cards. And I
Sure.
think that, again, it's just a sign of Eric works a lot. He's often coming from one movie where he works for a few days and going right to another film where he's working for a few days. So, like, yeah, it's tricky to memorize every single bit that he's doing. So, like, to me, the cue cards are just a way for him to be comfortable and feel kind of in the zone. So
I saw an
again,
interview
I think
with.
but I
I
was just
saw
gonna
an
say,
interview.
just my last point on that is
Sure.
it's not it comes sometimes I think people think it's like careless or like I'm not putting the work in. And I think it's the exact opposite. I think it's like, no, no, I want this to be perfect. And this is just another tool that I use to kind of get you the performance that you need.
I saw an interview recently. Eric said he left home and did 6 movies back to back before returning home. So a 6 movie field trip or 6 movie work trip, which is intense. And so the cue cards thing, Tommy, I don't have a problem with it either. I saw him employing that strategy. If anything, to me, it shows a certain respect for the script and the dialogue that's written. A lot of times you hear interviews with famous actors, and I don't agree with this, but a lot of actors think that a screenplay or a film script or a TV script is just a suggestion or a guideline. And I've heard famous actors, I think even De Niro or Pacino was saying that, oh, it's just the script is a guidepost, but I don't agree with that. I mean, some writer put a lot of work into this script and it's been approved by the producers, the directors, and everybody else. They've signed off on it. Why wouldn't you keep that in high consideration as like, this is what we're here to film, not let's go off and just ad lib stuff that seems fun at the time? Because in my experience, Tommy, I've seen actors do that where they just kind of improv stuff because they haven't done their work, they haven't memorized their lines, and it doesn't come out as good as if they had their lines.
Yeah, I couldn't
Or
agree
use
with
the
you
cue
more,
cards in
Mike. There's a
Eric's
lot
case.
of times. Yeah, there's a lot of times when I've been on a movie set, and you always try to pay attention to exactly every single line coming out of an actor's mouth. But you have a script supervisor. But needless to say, sometimes things get past you, and there have been some times when like a specific little word can really change the way a whole sentence sounds. And after the fact, you're in the editing room and you're like, oh, they said and instead of an or whatever. And you're like, ah, it wasn't quite how I wanted it. And you're right. Having the cards, it's like, well, I know everybody knows this is the line right there. So again, it's something that I've seen people in the industry kind of like haha about. But to me, it's a way to prep, and be ready and make it so that we, as they say, get through the coverage and make our day.
Yeah.
Um, so let's move along, Mike. I won't spend too much time on this, but about a year after the filming of Self Storage, Eric Roberts was back on the set of a Verdi production with a movie called A Bet's a Bet, aka The Opposite Sex. This movie actually had two titles, which is really weird. I think one of them was foreign and one of them was domestic, but uh, either way, A Bet's a Bet or The Opposite Sex. Cute romantic comedy starring Jeff Stoltz and
Mita
Mina
Suvari,
Suvari.
Jonathan
And
Silverman. Yeah.
yeah, Jonathan Silverman directed it. And it's a great film. And Eric just came in to play like again like a 1 day role, little cameo. Chad really likes to do that. He likes to kind of yeah, I don't want. It's not doing a favor, but he likes to work with a lot of people and be like, "Oh, let's bring Eric back for a day and have him play the small part." That would be really cool. It'd be cool to see him again. It's a nice way to kind of like continue that relationship. So we had Eric on set, and to me, this was fun. Uh, I got to kind of be Eric's like driver, if you will, for like a day or so. And I remember like getting a text from him being like, "Hey, boss, you got a gym around here?" And I was like, "Of course, yeah. There's a gym right near your hotel it was my gym that I would go to all the time." And I think it was a Gold's Gym at the time, right in the Cranston Warwick line for you Rhode Islanders. And I remember I'm gonna shut this door because they're putting a pool in across the street, which makes me jealous that I don't have a pool, but maybe someday.
Sure.
So we're at the Gold's Gym in Cranston, and I remember being very proud to be walking in to the gym with Eric Roberts. And there's Eric, he walks in, he's got a sweatsuit on, and he's like, "All right, boss, I'm gonna do some cardio, and then I'm gonna probably hit a few machines." And I'm like, "Sick." So I did my thing, he did his thing. It wasn't like a scene out of Pumping Iron where we were like spotting each other or shadow boxing or anything. But
Right.
we both did our little thing at the gym. We worked out for about an hour, and then I remember he kind of came over to me and was like, "All right, boss, I'm ready when you are." And we kind of got in the car and took a little drive. And believe it or fucking not, Eric Roberts gave me a little bit of relationship advice on
Okay.
that ride home.
Uh-oh.
Uncle Eric, he
Yeah.
became Uncle Eric all of a sudden. I remember I was kinda, to use a Southern term, I was kinda, like, simping over this girl. I was kinda,
Sure.
like, sad because this one, girl I was dating kinda, like, didn't wanna continue on, whatever it was. She wasn't answering my calls or whatever it was,
Sure.
drama. And I remember kinda was like, and he asked me, like, "How are you?" And I was so bummed out about it because 'cause I'm an emotional guy. I was so bummed out about it. I was like, "Yeah, kinda going
Sure.
through this thing. This girl I really like, yeah, it's not working out anymore. I don't know what it is. I didn't do anything. She just kinda a little bit of distance involved." And he said to me, "I wanna hang on, give me a second because it was such great advice. I don't wanna mess it up." He goes, "Boss, sometimes you gotta just learn to say goodbye." And it was so simple.
Yeah.
And it sounds so simple and silly, and I was just kinda like, "Huh, yeah, I guess, like, this is goodbye, and this is a new chapter." And he's like, "Yeah, there's gonna be other opportunities for you down the road, man. You gotta learn to say goodbye, and that's okay, you know?"
Sure.
And it's just like said it was like, again, it was like a lyric to a goddamn Waylon Jennings song or some
Sure.
shit. But you gotta everybody, if you're listening and you're going through a heartbreak or a heartache, listen to Uncle Eric and understand that it's okay to learn to say goodbye. So that's what we'll take from
Yeah.
Eric. Uh,
It's a
and that was
good
my gym
advice.
trip with Eric, and yeah, good advice from Uncle Eric. And look, through the years, we kind of stayed in contact a little bit. I'd see him at conventions, and he was always good at promoting, anything that we did. But I kind of, like hadn't really worked with him for like 8, 9 years. A long time
Yeah.
went by, and then finally, Chad Verdi Jr. and Paul Luba have this movie called Mr. Birthday, and it's a concept that they want me to come on and direct. And a friend of mine by the name of Dan Hunter, who I also work with sometimes,
Oh,
came
yeah.
on. And Dan did most of the work. We're going to talk all about Dan one day, but Dan came in and did most of the work on that. And
Yeah.
yeah, Dan and I came on and we directed Mr. Birthday. And I remember being very excited when basically, like, I guess you could say it's a kids movie, it's a family movie. So when I say, the foil or the antagonist, he ain't too hard. He's kind of playful and
Right.
lovable. But like the bad guy in the movie was played by Eric Roberts, and he came in for a few days, and we had him back on set. And Mike actually was also in this film. Mike, why don't you tell us a little bit about your involvement and some of your experiences? Because Mike, you got a chance to work with Eric again in front of the camera. You actually get to share a couple scenes with him.
Yeah, I had an Eric Roberts moment, and what a nice guy. And my first day on the set was Eric's last day on the set. So and the term marking out, is when you're an actor in a movie.
Fanboy, like
Yeah,
fanboying, you mean?
when you're an actor movie, in my limited experience, you don't want to necessarily seem like a fanboy or mark out for bigger stars or whatever you want to call it. But in this situation, at the end of the shooting, I couldn't resist but asking Eric to do a photograph with me. And his caveat is that it has to be a selfie because Eric doesn't want to stand there and so you got to take a selfie. And of course, at the exact moment I'm asking this, I don't have my phone on me. It's in my suitcase. So I think it was our buddy Paul Luba actually volunteered his phone, but I had to use Paul's phone because Eric only wants a selfie. But as far as working with him on set, um, the basically the first scene that I'm in the movie, I worked for 3 days, was basically the culmination at the end of the movie, where you've got Jason London from Dazed and Confused. He plays the dad. Was a great young actress. You've got Fred Sullivan as the retiring Mr. Birthday, so to speak, and you've got a bunch of people and Eric Roberts all in one scene. And just to kind of work with him and bounce some lines off of him in that scene was an honor and a pleasure. And seeing Eric's coolness and comfort, I would say, like, he's a guy who's, you hear this term and sometimes it's hard to really define it, but people that are comfortable in their own skin. And I think Eric Roberts is one of those guys that he fits into his own skin like a foot into a sock. You know what I mean? Like, he really is comfortable being Eric Roberts. And
Yeah, and it's funny. Well, go ahead, Mike. I'll finish
well,
your thought, and that kind
yeah,
of segues into.
just working with him at the end of the set, and like I said, he was such a nice guy, and he was kind of holding court with a couple of us, with me and Paul and a few other guys. And at the end, because that was his final day of shooting, so for him it was the end of the movie, and I had a few more days to work. But just such a nice guy. And then at the premiere of that movie, which really wasn't that long later, Tommy, I give you guys credit for the editing, was very efficient, because I think in October of 2021 there was the premiere of Mr. Birthday at the Warwick Showcase in Rhode Island, and I got to interview Eric for about 5 minutes. And Eric's other piece of advice for people is, he said this in the interview with me, he said it other times: always treat everybody like one day they might be your boss, because they might well be your boss someday. And Eric's, he's probably seen careers come and go in his life, and he's seen people go from production assistant to film director, or from
Or
someone who's
or from film director to the friggin' trash line, so to speak.
sure, yeah, he's
Like,
seen
not to
everything.
put a negative spin on it, but he's seen probably a lot of great careers crumble and get self-sabotage too.
He's a survivor, man. He's a guy that's been through it. And there's a lot of information about Eric Roberts online. His family, of course, he's the father of a great actress. His younger sister's a great actress.
Yeah,
But
let's
everything, I mean, it's just, he's been through it all.
yeah, let's hold before we get to that stuff. Just to wrap up the Mr. Birthday kind of moment in time, because I don't want to gloss over that. Mr. Birthday is a really cute family comedy. It's available now. You can just punch in the Google machine, type in Mr. Birthday, and it's MR period birthday, and you can't miss it. It's starring Jason London, Charlotte Ciano, and plays a really great part in the film. Uh, it's a great cast. Mike Messier's in there,
That's Hank.
and Anna Marie Dobbins plays a great part in the movie. Very fun, very lighthearted family movie. Everybody in the, everyone from young and old could watch it. It's appropriate for all ages. And I actually had fun. Like Mike said, he did the premiere with Eric, and Eric came to town and was gracious. And he kind of has a way of just making you feel good in that setting. And he certainly did that. Like Mike said, he was gracious in interviews. And I actually had a fucking 8-hour long press junket day. Hold on, I'm sorry. Did I say I had a press junket day?
Dan Hunter.
Actually, Dan Hunter had a
Yes.
8-hour press junket day. And I'll let the cat out of the bag, guys. I'm Dan Hunter.
Oh, geez.
We're gonna talk more about this another time.
Identity
But
crisis.
I have a bit of a pen name that I use for certain films. this being one of them. And it was kind of funny because Eric knew me. Eric does 1,000 movies, so all these stories are super intimate, and in my mind, they're deeply connected. But yeah, Eric works with a million directors, a year. So like, he might not even remember. Sometimes I'm like, does this guy? Does he remember me? And to his credit, yes, he
Right.
does, which makes me feel good. And I get on the phone. He was kind of like, so we're doing this press junket. And if you don't know what a press junket is, when you have a movie that's coming out, the company that's putting the movie out will hire a press team, and they'll get you set up with a dozen, 2 dozen different online periodicals and bloggers and video blog people and people who write about movies and critics. They'll send them screeners, and then those people will get on a Zoom with you since it's 2022. You used to do this in person. You used to actually go to a fucking hotel, and all these different press people would be at the hotel. So you'd rent like a room at a hotel, like a conference room kind of deal. You'd have a suite at the hotel for your actor to like chill in and hang out and be comfortable. And then you'd have them come down the elevator and go into the press room and bang out like literally a dozen of the same fucking interview over and over. And it's tedious, but
Right.
it's all part of the package. When you sign on to do a movie as a star, this is usually in your contract. You have to do this. You're contractually obligated to do so. So nowadays, it's a lot easier because you just log onto a fucking Zoom and you talk to everyone via Zoom, and you don't have to go anywhere. So I remember doing my, 9-hour long Zoom session with Eric and doing these interviews with him. And it was fun to just see him like quickly take to the Dan thing and be like, "Yeah, Dan and I, wow, I've known Dan since he was a very young man." And it's really cool to see. He's changed a lot. And it was like kind of tongue in cheek because when
Yeah.
you met me, I literally was, it was Tom DeNucci, that was Dan Hunter. And so we went back and forth. But on a serious note, two things I took from that day, remember, like I said early in the show, there's always the actor in me kind of studying what the veteran does. I'm like, oh, how's he approach this stuff? And it was cool to see two things. Number one, each interview that Eric gave was as if it was the first time he was giving it. And that was a true
Right.
professional quality because I'll tell you guys, it's fucking tiresome. And even me, like I was all jazzed up. It was my movie. The first interview, I'm like, yeah, it's Mr. Birthday, and we're really excited for all the family fun. By the seventh or eighth interview, you're like, yeah, it's Mr. Birthday. We're really excited about it. It's gonna be a great movie. It's gonna be really entertaining for the whole family. And that's the thing, like, to be a professional, you can't have that bullshit.
Right.
You can't give interview number 7 a bullshit interview because 'cause you're tired. You gotta give interview number 7 the same fucking energy that you gave interview 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and you need to make them all feel like, remember, you're answering these guys. I'm not trying to knock them, but guess what? They all got the same fucking questions. There's
Sure.
not a whole lot of unique shit you're gonna answer. So you have to return fire with the same answers. You got to keep your shit consistent. But that energy level that Eric was able to keep from interview to interview, where he, again, this is just his personality and his natural coolness, he made every interviewer feel as though they were the first person hearing this information. And that's
Right.
probably a credit to his acting ability. He's a talented guy, and he was able to like make every interview feel authentic and like it was happening for the first time, which I think is pretty cool. Um, but yes, we're going to start to wrap it up. And in wrapping it up, let's talk about the elephant in the room. And I don't want to get into this too much because look, it's none of my fucking business, and nobody really knows all the facts. But Eric comes from a very, very famous family, as we say, or I should say, he's the trailblazer of a famous family. And if you didn't know, his sister is Julia Roberts and his daughter is Emma Roberts. So you have these two sort of leading lady megastars that literally span like multiple generations. And Eric kind of blazed the trail for that family. It was really cool. And listen, I'm not saying anything that hasn't been mentioned before in articles, in news periodical, whatever. You can look it up. Eric once did have an estranged relationship with his sister, and it's not something that I ever talked to him about. It's again none of my fucking business. But there is kind of a cool story that I can tell, and there is a happy ending to that. And as far as I know, Eric and his sister Julia are on great speaking terms now,
Yes.
and they're pals, and it's all good. And the past has been put behind them, and it's all positive now. And I actually have a story. We've brought him up on the show before. Shout out to David Gear, who one of David's jobs. David's a producer, and he's done a lot of work with us. And one of David's specialties is kind of just being there for talent, and he knows what to say. He's not, some people are abrasive around talent. There's a way to speak to them. They want to be handled a certain way. They don't want to be paraded around. You just got to be smart. You almost become like their bodyguard in a weird way. I'm not saying you're going to take a bullet for them,
Right.
but it's your job to keep them all out of weird situations where people are going to hound them for autographs and pictures. And you just got to kind of like keep an eye out. So David's really good at that. So one day Eric had some extra time and he was just like, hey man, I want to see the ocean. He's like, show me the ocean. And he gets in the car with David and they go for a little drive. And David said he gets out, he kind of like, rolls his pants up and takes a little walk in the sand and sits on a bench and just kind of like chilling out. It was a cool image to think of Eric just kind of chilling in
Right.
look at the Atlantic Ocean instead of the Pacific Ocean. And then, thinking back, I think David told me that his phone rang and, he's kind of like, oh, I got to take this. This is my sister. Uh, and he, mentioned to David that like, yeah, they've been talking again and stuff. And it was cool to hear. I mean, like, hey, I'm not trying to sound like a goddamn
Yeah.
gossip column over here, but Julia Roberts is,
Right.
one of the most famous people in the last 25, 30 years. From Pretty Woman to Ocean's 11. I mean, are you kidding
Aaron
me?
Brockovich. Yeah.
Yeah, Erin Brockovich. She's the word legend gets thrown around a lot. Julia Roberts is a legend. In 100 years, people will still be talking about her movies. I think at least. So it was just cool to see that, and there's a little bit of a humanizing moment there. But in closing, what does Eric mean to me? I mean, I'll never forget Eric. He's always going to be the first star that I got to see. Like I told you, watching what major league pitching really looks like
Right.
under the magnifying glass. The first actor to really, kind of engage me as a director and listen to a degree and make a great film with me. So I'll always have that history with Eric. And ultimately, what Eric's legacy is, it's kind of cool because Eric's legacy is twofold. Obviously, there's the legendary status kind of career that he had, nominated for Academy Awards, Best of the Best, Expendables, Pope of Greenwich Village. We talked about all those movies, and those movies will live on forever. But then he's got this other side of him, and real quick, he's doing a lot of other great things currently too. Is it Gems, Mike? I believe is a show that he just did recently,
I think
uh,
so.
which was got some really nice acclaim. So my point is, Eric's been doing it a long time as an actor. He'll always have that legacy as an actor. But what he represents to me and what his legacy will represent is, I think of all the actors and directors and writers and producers that got a chance to get their start in the business because of Eric Roberts. As a result of Eric Roberts being that name in that movie, he's been the first, he's been the leading man in a lot of these movies that are directorial debuts for a lot of great artists that will cut their teeth in the business and go on to hopefully make a lot of great movies. And I think that that's really cool, like that he's been sort of the spark plug to
Yeah.
starting so many fucking careers and getting so many people off the ground and allowing so many artists to gain experience in what they do and get a chance to watch him do what he does, because the best way to learn is by doing and observing. Seeing is doing, doing is making it happen, and watching Eric work, you're bound to fucking learn something. So all I can say is big old thank you to Eric Roberts for everything that you've kind of given me in terms of knowledge and friendship and a lot of laughs. And it's great working with Eric, and we hope to work with him again sometime soon.
The Righteous Gemstones, Tommy, and well said. That's the show that Eric's actually doing now, and I think in his holding court with us on your set of or Dan Hunter's set of Mr. Birthday, Eric was just about ready to get over to the Righteous Gemstones, and he was very excited about it. And yeah, he's very giving guy. He's a very cool guy, very warm, cool and warm at the same time. And even at the wrap party for the Mr. Birthday premiere in October of 2021, Eric made an appearance and was such a nice guy and really just kind of lights up the room with his, but not overbearing as well. There's some celebrities that are kind of overbearing in a way, like the whole world has
Yeah,
to stop what they're doing and revolve around him. But Eric's not like that. He
he yeah, that just cool guy from
Gonna get me
Biloxi
wrong,
comes
but it's
out.
not like he needs it. Yeah, I gave him a compliment, and people can watch this and on Subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel. I think I have a playlist of the Mr. Birthday premiere. So if people want to see some of the visuals of what we're talking about, some interviews with the writers and then the different people from Mr. Birthday. But I interviewed Eric, and I gave him a compliment that I said, you know, there's an actor now who's very prominent that he reminds me of you, which is Matthew McConaughey. And if you think about it, if you watch a couple of Matthew McConaughey roles back to back with Eric, and Eric came first, you know, you can definitely see that McConaughey kind of, I don't want to say he's mimicking or impersonating Eric at all, but it just seems like maybe that Southern voice and kind of that cool guy thing.
Yeah, I
It's
could see that.
I'd love to see those two guys play uncle and nephew in a movie together.
I could
You know,
definitely see that, Mike.
I mean, the classic, yeah.
Couple of cool Southern cats. That's a line that Eric says a lot. He'll say, "You know, you're a big cool cat." You know that? And I think everybody watching along with us are a bunch of big cool cats. Quick shout out to all of our viewers. Again, Stephen E, thanks so much for your continued support.
Yes,
Johnny, same
Johnny.
to
Yeah.
you, brother. Ari, we love having you on board with us, and I love seeing this community that's been built. Johnny, was cool seeing you. Johnny was on set last night, and I got a
Right.
chance to actually meet Johnny in person. You get a chance to play a homeless person in this movie, Junction, which
Awesome.
we'll probably talk about one of these days.
Great.
Ari, you damn right he never lost it. Eric is the man. We love the specialist. I forgot. That's right. James Woods is in The Specialist. Shout out to a Rhode Island star.
Yeah.
Um, better shape than me. Eric, dude, Eric to this day is in fucking phenomenal shape. Uh, Ari, we have Kim today. How you doing, Kim? Welcome, welcome.
Yes.
Well, I should say thanks for watching all this time. Yes, that's right. Falcone breaks his knees. We have, what would you say here? Krazia?
Krazia?
Krazia? Am I saying
Krazia?
this right?
It's
Well, we'll just
Krazia.
say
I'll go with, yeah.
he says, "Hey guys," or he or she says, or they say, "Hey guys, can you go over distribution in one of your weekly shows?" You know, that's a great idea. We get that question a lot. Okay, you got your movie made. Now what? Where do you
Right.
go with it? That's a good one. I think that one will require a little bit of research for Mike and I, just because it's such an important topic. But we will certainly put that on the docket for the coming weeks because I think it's a great idea to do a show on distribution. So you got it. That'll be coming. Stephen E. Colby. Wives are usually are the glue. You're right, and that is the case with Eliza. She's an awesome woman. Colby, thanks for listening. I know you said this was your first time. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the community. These are all of our pals. We love just getting on here once a week, talking movies, learning a little bit about some of the bullshit that I've done in the last 10 goddamn years. Um, Note to self, don't fuck it up, but if you do, do it early. That's right. If you're going to make a mistake, make it right away, and then you might just have a chance to sweep it up a little bit. Steven remembers Michael Berryman in Weird Science. Yeah, and Colby, it really did put us in a tough spot. Thank God nobody got hurt and all was hugged out. Doug, this is a good old friend of mine here. Doug Meyer. Hey guys, great job with the show.
Thanks,
Listen to
Doug.
some of the episodes and subscribe to your channel. Thank you very much, brother. Looking forward to some further episodes. Doug is also a filmmaker, so you guys should say what's up to Doug. He's a cool guy. Uh, Thank you again, Colby. We really appreciate that. Kim, you know what? it is an interesting story, and it's kind of funny because I'll tell you, I haven't really told anyone that story other than like a few of my close friends. So it's fun to share it on this platform. And it happening 10 years ago gives me a little distance
The
from it
statute of
all.
limitations are well past.
Well past.
Yeah, yeah.
Matthew says you do a great job with lighthearted family movies. Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. I love doing those kind of movies too. Like maybe it's a problem of mine, but like as a director, like it's hard for me to pick a genre. I love all types of movies, and that's part of the reason why Dan Hunter is around, because Dan gives me the opportunity to direct some more lighthearted family movies that might not necessarily be in keeping with that fucking crazy person, Tom DeNucci, who makes a bunch of dark, dark films.
These are all Julia Roberts movies. I
Yes,
believe
we got Mystic
Miss
Pizza. That
Pizza
one
was
was shot not too
her
far
first
from
film, which
now.
is actually Connecticut, Mystic, Connecticut, which is a great little village.
I,
And there's an actual
not to
Mystic
go,
Pizza and
not to go
Mystic
on
Pizza
a
2 down there.
Yeah, not to go on a wormhole, but I think that's Matt Damon's first film too, actually,
Yeah,
or
he
one of
played
them.
the brother, one of the brother roles of one of the three girls. I think it was like Lily Tyler, Julia Roberts, and there was like a three female lead. They all became big stars, and
Right.
it might have been Deborah Messing was the third one.
Well, that's a story for another day. I had a blast talking about Eric Roberts.
Yeah.
As always, check us out on our social medias. You can find me at Tom DeNucci. Uh, you'll see my name right over yonder. If you type that into your Instagram, into your Twitter, I'll pop up. Give me a follow. And as for subscribing, we really appreciate it. We're trying to get these numbers up. Remember, this show isn't available on Spotify. It's not available on any other podcast platform. And there's a reason for that. We're trying to draw as much firepower onto this YouTube channel as possible. So please share, like, subscribe, comment. If you have any questions that you want us to go over, if you have any topic ideas you want us to mull over, feel free to drop a comment down. Again, this isn't just about us putting a show out. We're trying to build the film community right here, and we love doing it. And we're so happy that we got a little gang together. We can't wait to join you next week. You can find Mike Messier at mikemessier.com and on plenty of socials. And we're going to pick a topic out and we're going to put it out on again, follow me on Instagram, follow me on Twitter. I'll be putting stuff on Facebook too. That's where you'll find out what the topic for episode 7 and action will be. Until then, I hope you have a great weekend. And we are going to try and get a little more consistent with our dates. I'm really sorry about that. I know today's Thursday. We did Wednesday last week. We're really trying to keep it to this Tuesday thing, and especially Tuesday later in the evening. But I was shooting overnights this week. Mike was traveling in Orlando, so things got crazy. But we are committed to bringing you a show every single week, no matter what. You'll see us on And Action. Mike, you got anything to say before we get out of here?
Well, I appreciate Stephen E. Just subscribe to my channel, which is my YouTube channel is literally called Subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel. Kim, our good friend, made references to the Mr. Birthday interviews that are on that. I have a whole playlist of the Mr. Birthday premiere. And if people go to mikemessier.com, Tommy, the last couple of weeks I've put a lot of time into revamping my website and actually streamlining it. And if people scroll down on their computers or on their phones, if you go to and scroll down, you'll see all my social media links, the link tree, the YouTube, the Twitter, the Facebook. So if whatever you do, Instagram, I'm trying to do it all. So just go to mikemessier.com and that's how you can connect to me on your platform of choice. And I'm still hyping my books, Tommy. I'm still the fighter, the distance
The
from
book,
Avalon.
the
I know
book.
that you've got several copies that you've ordered for people, for your family, Tommy. I appreciate your orders.
Well, the winter's
I haven't
coming.
seen them come through on the Amazon report list, but I trust that they're coming. And there's another
Oh,
copy for you, buddy.
that
So
must
I'm
be a
just,
clerical error, bud.
yeah,
I
but
ordered them.
yeah, but I appreciate that, and it's this been a fun thing. And just to wrap up, Eric Roberts is a really great guy. He's a phenomenal actor. He's a legend. He did put the gauntlet down for that Eric, for that family tree. They all do the work, but Eric was the first to really make an impression. And it's been a pleasure working with him. And thanks for those opportunities, because I've really enjoyed crossing paths with him the times that I have. So it's been fun.
Well, don't thank me, thank Dan Hunter, and
Yeah.
we appreciate all the viewership, and thank you for watching, everybody. We'll see you next Tuesday on And Action. Take care, everyone.